Long ago, in the mighty city of Babylon, one of the greatest cities the world had ever seen, stood tall walls, shining gates, and beautiful gardens. The great river Euphrates ran through the heart of the city, its waters bringing life to the dry land and feeding fields that stretched far beyond the walls. People from many nations came to live, trade, and serve there. Persians, Medes, Hebrews, and countless others. For Babylon was the center of power and wealth.
Thank you for your custom. Enjoy the dates.
Over this powerful kingdom ruled King Darius, a wise and noble ruler who sought peace and justice across his land. Among all the king's advisors was one man he trusted most. His name was Daniel. Daniel was a man with an excellent spirit, demonstrating integrity, wisdom, and faithfulness. But most of all, Daniel loved his God deeply, and every day he prayed to him with a faithful heart. King Darius was deeply impressed by Daniel's wisdom and integrity. He planned to set him over the entire kingdom, second only to the king himself. But not everyone was happy about that. Some of the other advisors grew jealous.
The king favors him too much. Then let us bind him by his own faith.
And so, the jealous advisors came before the king. They flattered the king with smooth words. They spoke with soft voices and smiling faces, praising the king for his power and wisdom. Let a law be written, they said.
For 30 days, none shall pray except to you.
Anyone who prays to another god or man should be thrown into the lion's den, they said. And the king, thinking it wise, sealed the decree. The men bowed low and left with sly smiles. When Daniel heard about the new law and that the writing was signed, he was not afraid. His faith stood strong. He went upon his knees 3 times a day and prayed and gave thanks before his God as his custom was.
O Lord my God, give me strength to remain faithful, whatever may come.
But down below, in the shadows, some spies were watching to see if Daniel would disobey the king's decree. They saw Daniel praying, just like they hoped, and they went away at once, eager to tell the king. When the king heard it, he was deeply troubled. He tried until sunset to rescue Daniel, but the law of the Medes and Persians could not be changed. The officials stood nearby, quiet and still. They hid their smiles behind bowed heads. Their plan had worked. Finally, King Darius turned to Daniel. Daniel, the king said sadly, I have been tricked, and the law cannot be undone. Do not be afraid, O king, Daniel replied. The God I serve will save me. For a moment, the hall was silent. The king's heart was heavy with sorrow, but Daniel's faith was unshaken. He stood strong, trusting God. Night had fallen over Babylon. The air was quiet and heavy with sadness. With quiet trust, Daniel allowed himself to be taken, knowing his life was in God's hands. Even as the soldiers led him to the lion's den, his heart remained at peace. His eyes were calm, fixed on the God he trusted. Ahead, the dark cave waited. Inside, the lions growled softly, moving in the shadows. Yet his faith was stronger than fear. King Darius stood nearby, his heart breaking. He said with a shaking voice, May your God, whom you serve so faithfully, rescue you. The king turned away in sorrow, unable to watch. Behind him, the den grew silent, but in that silence, heaven was watching. That night, the palace was silent. No music played, no laughter filled the halls. The king could not eat or sleep. The city of Babylon slept below, bathed in soft silver moonlight. The king looked up at the stars and whispered, "O God of Daniel, please don't let the lions harm him." The mighty king stood small beneath the heavens, praying to a God he was just beginning to know. Hours passed, but he could not sleep. He sat on his bed, his head in his hands, thinking of Daniel. Every sound, the rustle of the curtains, the whisper of the wind, felt like a reminder of what he had done wrong. He had listened to the lies of men and sent an innocent man into danger. Now, all he could do was wait. The candles burned low. The stars began to fade. And as the first light touched the city walls, the king's heart was already racing toward the lion's den. At dawn, the city was still asleep, but King Darius was already awake. He ran down the palace steps, his robe flowing behind him, his heart pounding with fear and hope. When he reached the lion's den, he cried out,
Daniel, servant of the living God, was your God, whom you serve continually, able to rescue you from the lions?
For a moment, there was only silence. Then, from the darkness came a calm, steady voice. "O king, live forever. My God sent his angel to shut the lions' mouths." There inside the den stood Daniel, safe, unharmed, and shining in the morning sun. The lions lay quietly around him, their eyes gentle and calm. It was as if peace itself had filled the place. The king gasped in joy. "Bring him up, quickly," he shouted. Guards rushed to lower ropes, and Daniel was lifted from the den, alive, strong, and full of peace. The king bowed his head, tears shining in his eyes. "The God of Daniel," he whispered, "is the living God who saves." Morning came to Babylon. Golden light covered the palace walls, and the city slowly woke to a new day. On the high balcony, King Darius stood beside Daniel, the man who trusted God and was saved. The king lifted his voice so that all could hear. "Let everyone in my kingdom honor the God of Daniel, for he is the living God. His kingdom will never end." His voice trembled, not with fear, but with wonder. Darius spoke again, his voice strong and full of faith. "The God of Daniel saves and protects. His power is everlasting." The people listened in silence, their hearts full of awe. They had seen the power of the living God, the God who rules above all kings. As the sun rose higher and crowned the city in gold, hope filled the land once more. Faith was renewed, and Daniel's story, the story of courage, trust, and deliverance, would be told for generations to come. For he is the living God, forever and ever.